Hi guys, and welcome to today's video. Today we'll be talking about formats. What are they and why they're so important? I'm Miguel from Singlot, and let's jump right in. Creating content in social media is no easy task. We have so many inputs in social media that we tend to forget that the format is very important in the way we perceive that content. We will be talking about some of the mistakes that we've seen in our experience and how to solve those issues. We'll be primarily focusing on three elements. The first one is the aspect ratio, the second one is the length of the videos, and the third one is what we call others. So number one is aspect ratio, and the aspect ratio basically determines how tall and how wide your content is. So obviously each different social media platform has its own unique aspect ratio, or they try to push for one specific aspect ratio, and as a result you have to adapt the content to that specific platform. However, as more platforms come into play, we see a much more varied landscape when it comes to aspect ratio, so that's something you have to take into account. That's something you can play with. So for instance, take this image. So the image itself is kind of a wide aspect ratio, or we could call a cinematic aspect ratio if you will, and it's typically described as 16:9. However, if you're gonna advertise, for instance, in Facebook feed or Instagram feed, you need to make it into a square aspect ratio like this. So as you see, the aspect ratio is square, as we mentioned, and that means it's a 1:1. So the width and the height are equal. This is done obviously to accommodate for mobile usability, as most screens will display in the news feed the images and the videos in that aspect ratio. So make sure to get your subject in frame, otherwise you're going to miss information. But what happens if I want to use this footage and this content in Instagram stories or Snapchat stories, for instance? Well, what happens is I have to do this. So as you guys can see, the aspect ratio is totally different, and it is now a bit taller than it is wide. That means the aspect ratio is a vertical aspect ratio, and you can also call it 9/16, so it's the cinematic version but reversed. And that means in terms of pixel count, we're going to be working with 1080 wide times 1920 vertical. That is to obviously accommodate in the story format, so make sure once again to get your subject in frame. If you have a very wide shot, you might want to edit that clip so that you completely show the story and you don't miss information. So the second element is the length of your content. Obviously we're going to be referring a lot to video, because as we kind of get more and more bombarded with content, video becomes the way to go. Remember, you have 1 second to capture people's attention. You have to make it count. But when it comes to length, you are bound by the constraints of our attention span, as we said, and you are going to be playing with videos along the lines of 6 to 10 seconds maximum. So make sure your story is clear from the get-go. So finally we have our third element, and this is what we call others. And here we're going to subdivide this section into two different categories. The first one is the subtitles, and the second one is the file format of that clip you're going to create. So when it comes to subtitles, it's obviously needless to say that you need to add subtitles every time you have a video with a voiceover or someone speaking. A video like the one we're doing now is a prime example of something that tends to work much better when you add subtitles. We haven't been doing a great job, to be honest, with subtitles due to the lack of time, but we're trying now to add subtitles to everything we publish because it helps us reach out more people. You're on your sofa at night scrolling through your Facebook and you see a video with me, you're likely to have your phone in silent mode as you're maybe watching TV and scrolling on Facebook, as we said. So if you don't have subtitles, the chances of you stopping and checking what I have to say are very minimal. However, if I have subtitles, you may stop your scrolling, read the subtitles, and maybe if you find it interesting, then you're going to click and end up watching the video, which is what I want. And the final element of this puzzle is basically the file format that you want to select for your videos. When you create a video, you're going to have a myriad of different file formats that you can choose from. We recommend to stick with the classics and with what you know that's not going to fail at all. For social media and ads, what you're going to want to do is you're going to stick to the MP4 format, or precisely speaking the MPEG-4 format, because that is the right way to do it. Obviously when you're pushing content to social media, you will see that, for instance, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat will tell you the formats they support, so that way you have a much better idea about how it works. so you cannot make mistakes. And that's it for this one, guys. This was a very quick video, something that you may already know, maybe not, but yeah, whatever the case, these are some recommendations, some tips that we give you when it comes to video and content creation in social media, because it's one of these often overlooked elements that we tend to see people don't pay so much attention to, and it is crucial. Besides the camera gear you use, how crispy the image looks, if you're recording in 4K, in 1080, it doesn't matter that much, as long as the content is good, and then you have the correct format and the correct elements in that video, then you should be good. So we hope you've learned something. If you knew this already, that's great. I mean, you're doing a great job. So yeah, stick to it, and your social media game will be much better. Thanks for watching. See you next time.